welcome. So before we get started, I invite all of you or anyone who would like to come over here and join our amazing movement artist and dancer Arya on the dance floor. Right? There's a dance floor, so you can actually come in and walk on here. So I invite some of you, if you'd like to do that before we get started, so you can kind of get a first-hand experience of this. There's some interactive QR codes. Right, so I would invite everyone. So part of the thing that we like for this artwork is, an artwork, so it's not always going to be, on the periphery, that you can actually be inside it. So I'd like to enjoy some of you guys, just to know what it feels like to be inside the space. So when we kind of, and I know you guys are comfortable in your seats, but come on over to the dance floor, right? The Arcade of Hypermodernity, right? So.
Welcome to Studio Channel Islands. My name is Peter Tice, and Linda's game is getting a bit So I'm the director here, and I'm going to introduce our curators in a moment. We have Jason, Jenn, and Vojislav, Radovanović. So I'm going to hand over to the curators to talk about the exhibition.
Hello, everyone. So I'd like to start off. So I'd like to ask all of us to join in acknowledging the Chumash peoples, their elders, both past and present, as well as their future generations, as an acknowledgement that we have been given the opportunity and the honor of being in the homelands of the Chumash people, and to be inspired and have the opportunity to continue having a place and a mission for education and for the future of culture for the community. Okay, so thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Jason Jenn. This is Vojislav Radovanović. We curated this exhibition because Peter asked us to create something technology-based. And when you think about technology, one of the first things that comes to mind is things always go wrong. And we live in this hyper-modern world where there is so much happening and it's crazy and wild. But we definitely wanted to create something specific for this space. We wanted it to be fun, but we also wanted it to explore some deeper themes, social-political themes. So you can notice that in a variety of works, but we also wanted to have elements that were purely fun and uplifting, because right now we're at this precipice of technology doing amazing things, but also devastating industries, transforming the world in ways so rapidly that it's hard to figure out where we're going and what's going to happen next. And so we wanted to address all of those concerns while at the same time, again, having something that was light, fun, and the possibility of what can happen with technology and the hope that is also there. But as with anything in life, it's this balance between the good and the bad, the dark and the light forces. And we just are really appreciative for how amazing Peter and Jamie have been in making this exhibition possible.
They are amazing.
They are amazing, yes.
And this show is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I want to say that this was Jason's original idea, and then I kind of like accepted his invite to be part of curatorial team for this show. And today, artist talks and artists that are involved in today's program are the core artists that we built with the concept of the show. We started actually with their works on Mind, and we also want to say that most of the works that you are seeing here are produced for this exhibition, and we are deeply grateful for having this opportunity to be a productional curators, and we are really happy to hear what they are going to share with us today.
Yeah, so you'll be hearing today from 3 different artists. Carlos Luna James will be speaking later, but introduce Carlos. And Vojislav pointed out, actually, Pistol Star, the object over here to my left, your right, was an art piece that we saw at an exhibition at the LA Art Show, I think in 2018, 19, 17, something. And we were just blown away by it. And we've been kind of sitting on when can we do a show that we could involve Carlos's work, and the Arcade of Hypermodernity was like the perfect place for that. But also, as Vojislav mentioned, one of the things that Peter approached us about was wanting to make sure we have some kind of, those interactive floor videos. And immediately what came to mind is our other 2 artists, the collaborative team of Ismael the Onda III and Eugene On. We are familiar with their work from seeing it in various collaborations before. And what they do with the interactive map and their collaboration together has been really amazing and remarkable to see. And what you guys have done, I think you'll explain, that is catered specifically for Studio Channel. So please give it up for Ismael and Eugene.
All right, so I'm excited to have everyone here. I'm super honored and excited to be in this amazing show with an amazing, super stellar group of artists and some amazing visionary curators. And thank you so much to Studio Channel Islands for allowing us to use this venue for this show. So I prepared a few kind of images, and so let's kind of show some slides of some previous works. But I'd like to think the main focus is for us to discuss this work. But Eugene and I, we've been working together for a little while, so I kind of want to just introduce our paths cross and what we kind of bring to our team together. And so I grew up in El Paso, Texas. I grew up on the U.S.-Mexico Gateway with Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. And then my family has a farm on the banks of the Rio Grande in Presidio, Texas, and in Ojinaga, Mexico, right? So I kind of just grew up with this sensibility of having an existence that has multiplicities. So my grandparents' farm, sometimes it would exist in Mexico. Sometimes it would exist in the United States. Sometimes their property would be in the water somewhere, right? And so I think as I ended up studying art and trying to figure out what made me want to become an artist, and none of my relatives are artists, I decided to kind of use that element of ephemerality and how kind of nature can shift as maybe a poetic element in my work. And then also became interested in doing artworks that were interactive. So these are, so a lot of my artworks kind of deal with like family history and sci-fi culture or science fiction. So these are some swings. They're based on ones that my grandparents had on their farm. And then there's like the Star Trek Enterprise on there. Gene Roddenberry was born in El Paso, Texas, right? Even though he wasn't raised there, right? But I like to say that maybe that sci-fi cosmology was kind of born there. Oops. So I've been doing these kind of large-scale interactive installations that people can kind of interact with. So this is a project that I did in Rome, Italy. Okay. And then I started doing these installations with these kind of levitating or objects that were hanging. I guess part of me always wanted to be like an astronaut, so this was like a way to have my artworks kind of fly or levitate or kind of give that illusion. And I kind of use like a science fiction font. And so I started doing these also too, because like these floating, levitating objects have like holes in them. So I don't know if they would be able to kind of fly because of those kind of flaws or those kind of gaps in it. But I don't know, I kind of feel like I was doing these kind of flying objects as like a an affirmative gesture, art that can kind of go beyond the laws of, the gravity or the physical laws of the world. The imagination of art can maybe kind of go beyond that. And then also kind of like the idea of Star Trek when it was first created, we hadn't traveled to the moon yet, we didn't have cell phones. And so sometimes kind of growing up, I kind of felt like people would give me an impression that artists are kind of flighty or unrealistic, but I like the idea like, science fiction TV could inspire younger generations to develop this technology that actually exists now. This one, and I've had the opportunity to actually do installations in kind of alternative spaces. And so I've always enjoyed that, to kind of bring art in unexpected places. So this is a basement in Chihuahua, Mexico. It used to be, it was like one of the most notorious bars in the city, but then they had a resurgence and they wanted to kind of bring affirmative culture. So yeah, so I was able to do this, it became an art space. So it's kind of like a combination with traditional piñatas, but they kind of remind me of like satellites. So I kind of started merging that culture, right? So I was doing these pieces with science fiction and with kind of levitation. And so that's the family farm. And so the mountains over there are Mexico. So this is footage that Eugene shot with his drone camera. So he actually honored me and went with me to my family's farm, and we got some really great footage that we started using for some artworks, right? So I was doing these digital prints also. So I was kind of creating these spacecraft out of old farm machinery. So so my grandfather, he somehow maintained this farm in the middle of nowhere. The tractor on their farm was, I think, one of my first experiences with sculpture as a kid before going to museums and galleries. Like, it was big, bright, colorful. It was almost like a minimalist sculpture in the middle of nowhere. And then there was like weird things welded on them. I didn't know if they worked or not, So that was like my first experience with, with sculpture. So I was, telling these stories to Eugene, and he was looking at these artworks, and, so I was invited to, and that's when we met, right? So I was invited to give a talk at LACC. And so I was also invited to do an exhibition, and Alex Wiesenfeld, she's the one that connected us together, right? And so she said, would you like to also have an exhibition? I said, oh yeah, for sure. And she goes, we need to meet Eugene on, okay? So when this happened, right, this is when...
I live in a phone.
Yeah. Well, actually, kind of. I mean, this is how we have a lot of meetings, actually, right? And so actually, this is when we did a project in Rome, Italy. And so he wasn't able to travel, but we did an artist talk. And so we used, modern day technology. And so he was there, present at that in real time. I was at like 5 o'clock in the morning your time or something. So this was like during the time of the pandemic, right? So I actually was able to do this show. This was my local gym. And so this is when things were shuttered, right? Everything was shut down. And so this became a place to show art so people wouldn't forget about these local businesses. And so this is when I met Eugene. And so, I said, hey, Eugene, it's great to meet you. I heard you're the man, right? We're going to try to put together this show, but what are we going to do? Because, people can't go to the gallery, right? What are we going to do? Am I just going to do an installation in the space and just know conceptually that the art exists? And, people know it's there, but they can only see it through photographs. They can't visit it physically. Or, is it just going to be like a virtual 3D kind of gallery tour that a lot of places were doing? And so that's what I love about working with Eugene, right? He's kind of very generous. He's really creative. He's, stimulated and fascinated by a lot of different ideas. But he was thoughtfully looking at the work that I did of these like spacecraft. And he said, well, why don't we do this? These images that you're creating, we can actually virtually animate them. And we can actually put them online. And I'm teaching an interactive media class with my students. The students could actually do these artworks. And we could do this online gallery where people can kind of at a distance interact with these pieces, right? And so I really appreciated that. I appreciated his generosity of kind of connecting with some of my ideas, giving me the opportunity to take it one step further, because I had all these dreams in terms of like science fiction and technology. And I do have some background with that, but I was doing like a lot of analog pieces, even though I was using digital technology. But Eugene made a phrase that really struck with me. He's like, yeah, we're going to animate the liminal in your artwork, right? And so that's kind of where we started. And so after that, so this is what we ended up doing. So we did this piece. So those icons, right, they kind of relate to video game kind of imagery, like early 8-bit technology. But this is inspired, so behind it is a turnstile. So when I was a kid, every time I would go into Mexico, we'd have to go through these gnarly turnstiles. People were in a hurry, they would shove you through, you would get scratched. The metal, there was almost like fingers or claws that would kind of scratch you or kind of grab a hold of you as you're trying to go through. And I never felt it was a very welcoming portal, between these two places, which used to be one city, right? El Paso del Norte was one city with a river flowing through it, and then there was a land treaty, and then all of a sudden became two different countries, right? So again, this idea of multiplicity is something that's kind of built into me, and thinking about, do we always have to have one specific identity, or are we more than that as human beings? So anyways, what ended up happening, like doing these sculptures that were kind of flying in the air, I felt conceptually through this imagery, we could yank this turnstile out of the ground, transform it into this kind of more cheerful colored forms, yank it out like a weed, and just liberate it into the sky, and it could just kind of be floating around wherever it wanted to go. And then, so what we ended up doing, we started doing these installations, right? So this is at Angel's Gate, right? And in San Pedro. And so this is kind of a combination. So on the two sides, you see some of my digital prints, and then in the center, there's a video screen with a video that Eugene compiled with this animation of these kind of floating. They're called revolutions generators, kind of floating around, spinning around. But then also that's when we first started utilizing the QR code, where there's this augmented reality feature where these objects, you can take them off the artwork on the wall, and they're floating around wherever you want to go, and you can take them wherever you want. So it's kind of, this artwork is yours now, so you can kind of use it in different places. Right? So yeah, so that's where that began. So this is a piece that Jason mentioned. So we did a project at called High Beams. So I'm a member of Dirt and Array. It's an artist-run space in downtown Los Angeles. So it's in the Bendix building. So on the rooftop, they had all these performances. And so what we did is we projected one of the videos that Eugene created downward onto the space. And he also had a drone. So it was kind of filming live footage. And it was a live feed, so people could see downtown Los Angeles, and then they could use the QR code again. And so we just kind of kept building on these ideas, right? So this is a project that we did in Rome, Italy. So we went back to Rome after the pandemic. These are some laser cut pieces that I also kind of incorporated. So there's this kind of ongoing element. So, like today's talk is this idea of art and technology. And so the thing that I love about this piece, to me, it screams art. So I've been to some shows where it's technology based, but it's almost like a technology kind of fair or symposium, right? But I think you definitely see the art elements in this piece, right? And is there anything you want to add to this as I'm?
I think you covered it. About this piece here, when we were asked to.
Microphone. You need the mic. Thank you.
So about this piece here, it is called Dancing Movie Masters. It's a reference to an early text on quantum theory. And we thought that idea really fit in with what the show is trying to communicate this idea of, as Jason mentioned, the world moving forward because in spite of technology, and how do we navigate that? How do we maintain a presence in that? How do we hold on to humanity in that? So my background with the creation of this work is that I program, so I can work with code, I can work with things related to code. All of the things that you see in this piece have been written by hand coded. So it's not like we're using a tool or something to generate these things. Because of that, we get to explore thematical motifs that are deeply connected to why we want to create this book. So, for instance, all the principles that were in that book are referenced somehow in the behavior and the scene selection and the content of what you're seeing here. Everything here has some element of interactivity. You're actually meant to do something with the piece, the scenes, walk into them, control them by QR codes, lift something out of them through QR codes. The meaning of this piece comes from your interaction with it. and not from the piece itself. And a whole bunch of things. I really geek out on that side of being working with the numbers. We used a completely different number set. Chumash used a base 10 number set, so we used base 16 number set, not the base 10 that we use. So we use the base 16 number set and all the calculations that are going on here. You won't really notice it, but it's part of the experience. And the one thing you'll see here is a lot of circles and spirals and circularity and orbits. There are 360 scene positions here. They each have 360 iterations within them. The whole thing is meant to evolve over time over the span of this show. So a lot of the material, a lot of the original material here, we came out and did field work and visited the islands and visited Camarillo and all that stuff. So I hope that whatever you see today, you come back later as the exhibition goes on, you will see it change.
So, so this image here, so this is what this piece looks like when the projection isn't on. So, I mean, I kind of came of an age and I went to art school like at the end of the 20th century, the beginning of the 21st century. So I kind of feel like I had the opportunity to be in a place in between analog technology, digital technology, right? And so, yeah, so when I heard that, this had once been a high school and then it's a gallery and there's also kind of community outreach and programs, and that there might be times where there's like a live drawing class happening and the projection isn't on, I was thinking, what kind of presence can we have? Because in essence, this is just like light, it's just information, right? So I kind of thought about maybe having a dance floor here, and that's kind of, I don't remember the dancing Wooly Masters idea came first or the other way around, but it just kind of reminded me of like kind of growing up, like community centers, like when my families would go to like the park and there'd be a community shelter and they would have like quinceañeras or weddings or birthday parties, and how they just had this small perimeter as a dance floor, but there was all this activity in this one space. So I wanted this idea, like when the projector isn't on, there's still kind of this kind of minimalist sculptural component, right? And it also kind of refers to the human body, right? And so, yeah, so that's something that I was kind of interested in, and this idea that maybe the video game experience is our movement also almost kind of like being like a punk version of Tron or something, us being on the inside of the video game, So yeah, so whatever activity was happening in the space, whether the projection was on or off, I was hoping that could also be a component, to this piece. And the other thing about this too is it keeps changing also too. So there's code that Eugene created, but some of it has kind of been changing kind of beyond his expectations also too. And so I guess maybe that also speaks to the hyper modernity, or it also, for me, a couple of things. So I was wondering if some people might ask whether there's like a AI in this piece. And so it's all hand-coded by Eugene, but it's interesting because it just kind of makes me wonder, like AI culture, like what is the outcome when you make a work of art? What is supposed to be art? It's like having the knowledge to kind of recreate something in a specific canon, like some idea of kind of mastery or kind of perfection. But this piece is kind of more about the process, right? Eugene kind of wrote the code, but these other things are kind of happening kind of more organically. And so anyway, so I kind of find that kind of interesting also too. So like Eugene was saying, like this piece is about interactivity. So yeah, so it kind of continues, there continues to be an element of interactivity with us and the way that it's kind of being presented, how people interact with it. There's other components. You want to talk about the 3D scan of the local artist's work, or?
Yeah. So it looks like there's two projectors that are putting the images down, and so there's a compositing that's happening here, and that's why we encourage you to walk into this scene, because some interesting things will happen that you'll discover about the nature of your shadow. It won't behave the way you think it behaves normally outside. So we encourage that. But one of the things that happens, one of the projectors is a little bit offline. We'll get that going when we actually can do some demo. This QR codes will pop up, and you're also invited to hit the QR code with your camera. And a number of things could possibly happen. I couldn't tell you what, because there's a lot of different things. But sometimes the QR code will lift whatever's in the scene off of the floor and into your phone and projected into augmented reality space, and then you get to have that experience controlling whatever's in the scene. Some QR codes will give you a control interface that will let you change something about what's happening in the scene. For instance, these bubbles here, they're actually images that have been uploaded through a QR code app onto whatever was shown as a kaleidoscope that will eventually show at some point, showing images. These are images that you guys have put up. So your interactivity is not just in having an experience with the work, it's actually adding to the experience for other people. And that's something that we think is very definitely part of how our culture is moving faster, and what does it mean to be in a modern era. We're in a modern era where we don't have to wait for messages and content. We actually are the message and we are the content, and this piece is sort of exploring that. There will be a QR code in one of these scenes that lifts up a augmented reality view that shows other pieces in the exhibit in 3D augmented reality space. So it's kind of cool because all of these augmented reality apps, they'll just work in your browser. You don't have to download anything. You don't have to install anything. When you walk out the door, you can take it with you, and then you can keep looking at it at home. So if you like Carlos's piece here, you can take it. I mean, I hope if you really like it, you just buy it from him, but you can take it home and then keep looking at it, at home. So we're interested in having this piece be sort of a portal for you into a whole bunch of different experiences about the exhibit and about what you think is a visual experience and what you think is an interactive experience, and where you place yourself in terms of being with art.
So
Is it okay to ask questions?
yes, yeah. Are you guys ready for questions?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I have two things. First, I knew I teach at LACC, so it's great to see. I didn't recognize you with the beard. But what specifically connects to what from the Dancing Movie Masters? I'm really interested in the imagery that you kind of caused from specifically, like what the relationship was. But the second thing was more of a thing I noticed when you said that the Chumash used base 16 instead of base 10. And in Photoshop and in a lot of digital environments, I mean, it's based on base 16. The hexadecimal numbers in Photoshop and in color spaces and so forth, it's like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, right? So was there a specific relationship with the hexadecimals in the coding of the piece and in how you conceptualized the relationship between the Chumash and contemporary technologies?
So Laurel just completely validated the backstory of our process here. Thank you. Yes, computers run base 8-bit,
Right.
8-bit
8
video
bit
games,
to 8 bit.
and it's just the way that they figured out how to make processing as fast as possible. So it's very interesting that an indigenous population of this area was running on something closer to that than what we run today. In terms of how it expresses in the piece, I'll let Ismael talk about the actual content, but for the process, it actually streamlines some ways about how you think about moving data. And from my point of view, this piece is a data piece. It's about how we get data together, enough data so we can do something about it and create a structure where you can visualize something. And the more I can find ways to accumulate and call things data, like go from noise to signal, then the more I can start doing things that might have some kind of aesthetic value for us as human beings.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Dancing Movie Masters, that book is like 40 years old, but when it was written, it was meant to be like a book for people that know nothing about quantum physics, and so it's still a pretty sound book. But the thing about one of the main things about that book is when they were starting to kind of learn about quantum physics, that light particles function both as a wave and I forget what was the other one.
Particle?
Particle. Yeah, the light particles will function as particles and a wave also too, right? So the thing I like in that idea is there's this kind of multiplicity to the way the world works, right? And so that's just kind of how my mind functions, right? So I think that's something. So that was kind of like a starting point. Also, I am a big fan of like art from the 1960s, and so there was a lot of stuff kind of happening at the same time. And so the thing about I used to work at the Museum of Contemporary Art. And so people would come in and they were trying to understand what contemporary art means, right? So basically the story that we would say is like art from 1900 to 1945, that's modern art, that's a mechanical age. And then 1945 to the present is contemporary art, because that's after the atomic age, right? So there's like a shift in the world where things move from the mechanical world to energy, right? There's this thing that you can't see, an atom, and you can split it and have this immense amount of energy, and it can be dangerous, right? So a lot of the artists at that time in their 20s, they started freaking out, like what's happening, what's going on with technology? What are some other things in the world that you can't see? And so a lot of those artists started kind of reading kind of Zen philosophy, and that's where minimal art starts to happen, where like, how come I'm looking at this white cube, right? And so it's this idea that they were kind of removing information and they wanted to make artwork that had kind of more of a meditative kind of experience instead of things just kind of speeding up or kind of going crazy. But this idea of, kind of like being a particle and being a wave, that multiplicity, I kind of enjoy that in my own work. Like I kind of said, just my family's history of being from multiple places at the same time. And then the other thing also too, and I can't remember actually. But anyway, those were some kind of connections that I have in
Like
terms
we're
of.
seeing pictures of currency, money, and
Right.
like, is that from Woolly Masters, or is that somebody uploaded those, or like which images did you sort of?
Oh, okay. So from
Yeah.
the Dancing Woolly Masters, the one imagery that's directly from the book is there's this wheel of spinning feet or legs. I don't know what happened to it. It disappeared for a second, right?
Comes on.
And so that's actually from the cover of the book, right? But I think that was perfect because Eugene was already talking about these circular movements, mandalas. So the coins is something new that's been added, and Eugene can talk about that. But yes, it just seemed like there was this kind of circularity that was kind of happening in things. And Eugene and I were doing this project called Revolutions Generators. So it's meant to be kind of a play on words that, a revolution that something new can happen, or radical can happen in a culture or society, but also just the idea of kind of things kind of moving around in revolutions. And I have a kind of an interest in like Taoist kind of philosophy. So there's that kind of component also to this kind of balance of different elements in the world kind of thing. So, you want to talk about the coins, or?
Well, I just want to say that, we're going to be around after the talks, and, if you want a little walkthrough on the demo, happy to do that. But I want to keep things moving for the sake of the program and hand this back to Jason, because Carlos has a lot of interesting things to share too about this. But we'll be around, and thank you so much for your interest in the exhibit and our piece and today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we will have more time for questions that you can also ask them at the end, and we definitely want to hear from Aria as well about her experience on the dance floor. And again, we'll invite people to participate interactively. So again, with the idea of immersive technology and art, we're going to bring now Carlos Luna James to deliver a little talk and presentation about his pieces here. And I know it's really cool that augmented reality is a big feature of it. And for those of you who haven't experienced it yet, he will explain.
Thank you. Let me see. Just have a little presentation to share. Can someone set it up? Yeah. I don't know which one you know. Here.
It's a technology.
Yeah, part of the idea of doing technology is something will always go wrong.
This is perfect.
Great.
So my name is Carrillo James. People call me, or as an artist, Ismael Galáctico, which means Galactic Wizard. I'm originally from Mexico, from Ciudad Juárez. It's funny that here my friend is from El Paso. I just knew right now. It's incredible. And then later on, I study design. It's my major career. And today, I'm going to talk about immersive technologies and how I apply those immersive technologies into my work. So, before starting, like any artist, like I have a long, very long process, and I'm going to share a little bit of how it looks like. So usually I start with sketches, like everyone, then I digitalize those sketches. My process goes from illustration, design, animation, motion graphics, and I love carpentry. So, and I like to play in between those two things, between the digital and the physical. I feel like those two things needs to be connected in the work. So some of the work that I'm going to share right now is work from the past, and I'm just going to share how I've been using my work, and most of my work again is physical and digital. And what I try to do is like blur the lines between what is real and what is digital, what is physical. So some of the work that I use and a lot of the work that I use is projection mapping to blur those lines, what is real. So when you get there and you see close, you see like, oh, this is physical, and I thought it was digital. And that's very, very something that I always look to my work. So again, I love storytelling. That's the main thing that I try to give through my work. Tell a story about what is happening, especially in my life, at the moment. And from there, I build around, So that's it during our Basel. The one that it's over there during our Basel week, Miami. There's an installation. This installation on the left side was one of my favorites because for the first time I was invited to do a Sotheby's auction in London. And this piece is it's very interesting because it runs real-time graphics. Every day changes. For example, because it's a tie with Google Weather. So for example, sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's foggy. So what you see on the screen is like sometimes it's wet or it's raining. Sometimes you see that the fog is around. But also one of the coolest thing is like it kind of looks like a real life thing, because at night you go to sleep and everything goes dark and everything glows. But sometimes in the morning, wakes up and everything is like a sunny thing, and it has also sound design. On the left, there's some other installation I did, so some of those on the top left is part of one collection that I call the Cosmic Piece, which is part of that one. So this is some of the projects, but I want to share a piece of video that talks about my current project, which is part of this, and it explains a little bit of the concept and the process of my work. And for the first time through my career as an artist, I hire a team to work with me because there's a lot of process that I'm working on. but also when you work as a team, the collaboration is very important, and you learn more. And for me, it's a new, exciting time because I can be able to bring these ideas into bigger ideas in collaboration. So, is there sound on this? This is my ideal of a museum gallery to show my work. It's kind of like entering into a museum where all these civilizations that you built lives, and because they're from the future, you can see it, or from another planet, you can see it kind of like in a museum of history.
In a world where technology and ancient traditions intertwine, there exists balance.
I built this one. It's a graphics using Unreal 5, which is a game engine.
Empowering nature's ancient worlds.
Which is super hyper realistic, which is one of the things that I love too.
Our temple, sacred technologies.
And this is the portal that we have here.
The light. The love. Kin, the prophet of Embadora. An immersive chapter series in the intersection of physical and digital art.
So next, I'm gonna share here on the video all my team right now, which is a big team.
Hello, my name is Camarillo. I'm a multimedia artist in the intersection of physical and digital. Today, I'm excited to share step by step the creative process behind my latest project. This multimedia immersive novel is a global participatory art project that invites you to explore reimagined worlds through immersive video, AR, and VR. Kim blends sci-fi with ancient traditions, exploring themes like techno-chamarism and using game engine environments. The journey began with the conceptualization of Kim. The idea was to create an immersive novel that blends futuristic and ancient elements, encouraging global participation. The themes of techno-chamarism.
One of the most important things is invite people to explore. And I created this app for going to explain right now.
AI tools like ChatGPT.
Some of the programs that I used to create this story. From ChatGPT that helped me craft all the narrative of the story. But also to visualize faster the story. I use Midjourney to visualize in a fast way what I wanted to share. With prompts, I created this visualization.
Experimenting with AI, we track body motions to ensure the movements in the digital world mirror those in real life. We invite an Aztec dancer to perform the dance of fire, one of the most symbolic traditions that is in the Aztec culture. This performance was captured using the Rococo suit and AI, translating the dancer movement into a digital data. The captured body movement data was then applied to the digital mesh. This process involved translating the real-life movements into a form that could be manipulated with our digital environment. Using our real 5, DAS 3D, and Marvelous Design, we developed the look of our character. These tools allow us to create detailed and lifelike characters and meta-humans. The skeleton mesh, created from the motion capture data, was integrated with our custom meta-humans. This step ensured that our digital
just show some of the process
and custom map LED lights. This could
to
be
create
created
this
combination of the physical sculpture with the AR activation component. We develop our app using unique data. Users can activate the experience by downloading the app from the App Store and scanning a specific signal. Additionally, geolocation features allow users to find AR images in public spaces. In keeping with our ancestors' traditions, we integrated blockchain technology. This keeps track and preserves historical tradition, ensuring they remain accessible and unaltered over time. The AR activation serves as a portal representing the intersection between our physical reality and digital art. It offers users a unique way to engage with kids' world, learning the tangible and intangible. Immerse yourselves in kids' world. Join us celebrating the dance of ancient cultures and technological innovation. Visualize life, death, and power.
So as you can see, there's a long process, but also thanks to technology has saved me a lot of time and a lot of resources too, especially conceptualization, mood boards. Like I can, with AI technology, I can save a lot of time visualizing what I want to do. And it's, for example, using Midjourney helped me to visualize the prompts, what I really wanted to focus on and what I really like, the look and feel of. And then from there, it's kind of like I have now a template. Now with this template, how can I build on top? So I go for building for modeling these characters, modeling everything. Go from 3D to creating like all the clothing and everything. From there to going like using the Rococo suit, which is a technology that is pretty incredible, that helps track the motion of the body in a way where it feels like real in real time. And even though when you're using those technologies, there's always something to clean or work around, they help you a lot to minimize. Imagine those animations, doing it back in the days, hand drawing, like frame by frame. Now with the technology that we have right now, even though you need to clean up a lot of the animation, you still have like so much save time, you know. The same with AI. If you guys have any questions during like these, or you have like any questions about the process, please let me know.
Well, I have a question for you. So can you explain to like the how Portal works and how also you have the portal inside and outside Optimus?
Of course. So because I want to create an intersection between the physical and the digital, I create this app, the app that you saw right now on the video. So you scan, and the incredible thing is that it works with geolocation. So right now, we have one here that you can scan using the QR code and that pedestal here. And you scan it and you see it here indoor in space. But also, if you pick, I have different locations in the world where you can like, if you know the location, you go there, and then you just put turn on the app, and from there it will tell you or point you where the sculpture is located. So when you go there, like it's gonna point you. You walk there, and it's gonna be there, and you can explore that sculpture. And that's a new project that still I'm still working on it because I want to add more features and stuff. But it's one of my favorites right now.
I have a question. What prompted you originally to get into using these, the creatures, these forms? Is it from Aztec and Mayan symbology and forms?
For most, but this is very, very, very interesting because how I do my prompts in Midjourney is very directed or dictated. For example, I built something very raw, kind of like in Photoshop, kind of like a sketch. Then I build my prompt on top, but it already have a look. So it's already kind of like having a look and feel. And a lot of the things that I do, they're very tied to my culture a lot. And one of the interesting things that also Ismael mentioned, living in Juarez, for me, it was very interesting because it's the culture there, especially on all the borders, is like hybrid, very hybrid. It's very in between Mexico and between, it's not fully Mexican, not fully American, which is kind of like very interesting. So I'm very interested in all the work that I do is based on culture hybridization. You know, everything that you see is like a mix of those two. So when I prompt something, I'm the look, you can potentially say like this is Mexican, but like the overall thing is like very universal too.
Yeah, I mean, that ties very much in with one of the things about hypermodernity, which we didn't mention earlier, is that since we went online with the internet and it became open to the public in 1995, we've seen a shift from the postmodern in some ways to what we are referencing as the hypermodern, some philosophers consider. And what's interesting is that basically we're now connected globally, and therefore we are in the situation where many people today don't really know their cultural background, but they know everything. We're kind of part of this globalization that's happening. And so I like that you're definitely adding this, we're hybrids right now. You know, our culture is no longer one thing, we are universal, whether we like it or not, you know, for good and for bad. And also, for hypermodernity, there was a big political shift after 9/11, because that's sort of the end of the American dominance after World War II globally, to this sort of shift of everything. So very interesting that you're hybridizing.
Yeah, no, since the beginning, I think my work, when I started, like really to get focus on art, my main focus or my main idea was like culture hybridization. How do I put this hybridization into a piece of artwork and a piece of the story, also that ties with everything. And I think a lot of the things that I use also is empathy, love, which is our universal language for everyone. Everyone understands, even if you're from any country, you know that love, we connect with love, we connect with empathy, we connect with all these universal codes that are inhuman.
So, so the video of your gallery space with all of those sort of side projections, portals, whatever you want to call them, is there a way to share that video or that work or enter that game environment that I could share with others or that we could share with others? Or is that still in process of being built? Like, where is that where maybe I could show it to my students, or, you know, because I think it was really powerful, really, really interesting.
Thank you. So right now, I'm in the process building everything, really, like all the physical and the digital and everything I'm building together. This also presentation helps me right now for open calls, and also I'm not using it for commercial, but more for teaching. And I'm in the process of you guys are the first one probably to see this my new work. But I would love to share with you, of course.
Yeah.
I can share with you.
The other thing is that that piece that we can go geolocate and see it in situ. Do you see a time when we could quote unquote take it with us, like these parts on the floor that are being projected, and we could have it swirling around in our living rooms, or is that
Oh,
something
yeah.
that you're building? Or is,
Yeah, well, part of that, like, I'm building right now a collection, limited edition of mini sculptures that have augmented reality too, and these are like only for collectors that they can like, okay, I'm gonna show you my piece of artwork. Now you're gonna see it like in digital, and you can have another experience there. But also like most of my latest projects from since 2020 are in blockchain through NFTs. So everything that is physical and digital, for me, it's an NFT. And also like everything is being tracked using NFC technology. So everything, you can scan it, you can like see when it was built, when it was collected, when it was minted in blockchain. So for me, it's very important to continue having my work in blockchain, so everything is clear and everyone knows what's happening with my work. And at some point, a collector sell my work, I can keep tracking of the work. Very different from probably traditional, very traditional work, where as an artist it's very hard. Like you sell to, well, the gallery sells your work, and you never know who has the artwork, or you probably know the collector, and it stops there. But with the newest technology and with NFTs and blockchain, that opportunity is incredible because you know all the time who's having your work, and you can, as you know your collectors, you can also give them something. You can connect easier. You can give back as well, and it's a one-on-one connection. It's incredible.
thank you.
We're now going to bring back Eugene and Ismael and you can ask questions to all three of them. So I think we had two more questions in the audience. Did you have one?
Yeah, I was just wondering to the artist who was just
Carlos, yes.
yeah, if he could speak for just a minute about his choice of colors and the meaning behind the color palette that you use.
Sorry, I was distracted.
Yeah, could you talk about the color palette that you tend to work with? Why did you choose these particular colors and what do they mean for you?
Of course. Well, I think I born in Juarez, right? And then when I moved to study design to Guadalajara in the center of Mexico. I got in love with the folk art and the color of Mexico, like, because now I understand color and culture in a better way because I'm in the center of Mexico. So I use very bright colors because that's like probably like my culture, no? Like the pinks, the yellows, the very unique. One of my favorite colors is pink, and the gleaming pink. And there's a architect, Barragán, a very, very well-known architecture, which used to use and create this color called Rosa Mexicano, which is Mexican thing. And that's one of my favorite colors. And again, I'm super in love with my culture in Mexico.
Thank you.
And the colors.
A question over there, yes.
I have a question that went back to when you were talking about the base numbers. I understand the base 8 using computer technologies and base 10 makes sense, and we have 10 fingers on our hands and stuff like that. But where would the base 16 have originated from?
It's a good question. That's a good question. In the research that I did, to prepare for the programming approach to this work, it's a little bit of a mystery. I'm not an expert on it. Basically, it was like, hey, we're going to make something site specific. We're going to go deep into what does site mean, and it included like history of place and culture. So I'm not sure, but you know, there's some speculation about how the Chumash, the indigenous people, you know, how were they just people living off the land? You know, you develop a real sensitivity to things if you're living off the land, and if you have to develop tools and you have no, you know, you build your own infrastructure. I think all of our everything that we're sharing today is that, you know, as artists, we're not just behind the form that you're seeing. You know, we're tapping other things. We're tapping material. We're tapping process. We're tapping culture, and I think the indigenous people are doing that too. And I don't actually know what the answer is. And they're not here to tell us because, you know, they're smarter than that. So just to come and tell us.
I mean, I teach, design classes, and I mean, I kind of point out that a lot of, you know, like early pixelation, early video game graphics, they're very geometric. And for me, I can see a relationship to like the weaving of a lot of indigenous cultures, right? That has existed and come throughout time. And it's kind of like the imagery that started a lot of, video game and computer graphics, you know? So, and that's one of the reasons, like for this dance floor, this was just like a ready-made generic dance floor you can get for weddings. But I like the geometric pattern to it, and also kind of remind me of like early, like Huber, like early, you know, 80s video games also too. So that kind of cross section of those things, yeah, it's definitely, I think in all of our works, but yeah. So,
I have an anecdote just to add to that. When we were doing the research and I got the numbers, you know, the base 16 number was like, oh, okay. You know, the circles and motif, that's big in this piece, 360 degrees, 16 to 360, 22.5, that's half of 45, which is half of 90. So, you know, there's all these things, and if you're a woodworker, you know, 22.5 is a really significant angle to have, you know, cut out on your miners and stuff like that. So, you know, I think the clues are all around this. You know, if we just like poke around, all the clues are like just sitting there. We just have to put them together.
Can I just mention something about the 16? It's 8 times 8, and in Judaism, that's probably ancient on that. It's 8 by 8 by 8 by 8. In other words, it's a sacred numbers. 8, 16, 24, 32. So that you often in fundraising with Jewish fundraising, the donations will say give either $8, $24, $32. So given the fact that Chumash are about as old as, you know, the Jews and the Israelites, it's about 5,000 years. There's probably some, and continents were probably connected, right? I mean, there's definitely connection. I lived in Vermont, they were connected. These Celtic sites all over New England. So I think, you know, that might be, it's logical, right?
Good point. Yes. Well, I guess it worked out that our dance floor is 8 feet by 8 feet.
8 by 8, yeah.
I just had a super quick question for Eugene. What do you program in? Python, processing?
So this here
Yeah.
is built on LAMP platform, Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP as the back, and then it's a move toward the front. There's JavaScript as a bridge between the front and the back,
Sure.
and then a lot of the animations are done with CSS and the structure is HTML. So it's a web.
Awesome.
It's a web app.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
I had a question regards the video that you showed, Carlo, which was that the gallery that you made, that's all done in a video game?
Not in a video game, but using video game engine, which is Unreal. So part of the narrative is going to live in VR, part of the narrative is going to live in AR, part of the narrative is going to live in physical space. So that space particularly that you see potentially is going to live in an AR, VR experience.
Okay, so that way you could
You
potentially,
can potentially get inside,
right,
walk around, see the space
as,
but-
as an avatar?
as an avatar.
Oh, got it. Got it.
But the idea is that you experience that in real life with real pieces.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
the main idea.
that would be what you would wish.
Yeah, that's
So you
what I
could show
envision.
that and say, hey, here's what it could look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very.
Because
very
I'm
cool.
actually building every piece in real, like with ceramics, the mass are building in ceramics, and everything is building in real.
Yeah,
in real
would be,
life.
would be tricky. I have a second question for you, and that is that all these pieces that you've cut out, which are beautiful and super intricate, are you using a CNC machine for that?
Laser cut.
Laser cut?
Laser cut, yeah.
With a computer?
Yeah. I designed everything. I built it. I cut it, and there's some parts where I'm jamming. Not everything is perfect. Cut it in the laser cut. Because,
Yeah, so you gotta.
yeah,
finesse
figuring
it.
it out things, and oh no, now I this or that, and I'm jamming there, which is part of the process. But what I intend is also like make it look like unrealistic too, like so perfect in a way that you kind of like feel like it's real, it's a plastic, and everything is wood. Also, for example, for this one, because I'm using LEDs, I wanted to have like a raw material and very like cheap and like because I wanted to have like these two contrasts
Right.
between technological and like raw at the same time. So I'm using MDF, which is probably like, but also like if you see it, even if there's no light,
Right.
it looks incredible. It looks like perfect. It looks
Very shiny.
beautiful and like sharp and like
Yeah.
very, very like natural too. It doesn't need to have the lights.
Yes, I love your artwork. It's so inspiring. I'm a filmmaker, so I like see everything in terms of story too, and I love all that. And I just love everything you're talking about. You guys are all so brilliant. You're like in another stratosphere here. But what I think is so interesting is to be able to have art accessible to people all over the world, which is what we're talking about. Because not everybody has the honor and privilege to be able to go to museums and see these private collections that people are buying, and then you don't get to see them. So the fact that we can come in and experience on our phones or wherever we are, I love the fact you put on glasses and all of a sudden, bam, we're in your gallery and we're experiencing all these pieces and going to these worlds. And also gives people an opportunity to purchase things that they wouldn't be able to know about. I think that's the thing. I did a documentary about this very well-known artist. He's got thousands and thousands of pieces of art. And I'm just like, everybody needs to see these pieces of art, but they're all in these storage units. And if we could share, like you're doing, your beautiful artwork with everybody, all three of you. So I just feel like it's really game changing for everybody. So I'm excited to see more of your work.
No, thank you. And it's very important that what you mentioned, being accessible. And one of my ideas of creating public art, digital public art, which is accessible because most of us, we own a phone, right? And if I have a specific location, a sculpture in a specific location, and you have my app, you have the opportunity to explore those installations or those three-dimensional sculptures, because also you can walk around, you can see it like very close here, and you can walk around and see like the detail of the. And I invite everyone outside to check out the portal, which should be here around. Just download the app. But yeah, accessibility is one of the most important things, and accessibility with the technology that we have and social media, we can share and everyone share it. It's much easier to find. And it's also like another thing, like it's kind of like a rebel way, because I don't know any like me as an artist, I would love to have a public art piece. But if I don't get the opportunity, I still have the opportunity because I built that opportunity for me to show my work in public spaces.
Great. Wait, maybe one more question before we open the dance floor again? Or would you like to add something?
I just kind of wanted to interact just because I wanted to take advantage of the fact that we're here with another great artist. And so fantastic in like pairing us together. I just want to say I feel like this show is a very contemporary show. I mean, we've had technology for a while, we've had QR codes for a while, we've had video games for a while. The thing I like about this show is lots of times when a new technology comes on the scene, people are kind of fearful of it. It's going to take over, and I like that. I don't know if that's just things like that always happen. I kind of feel like technology gives us more options. I also like that. I think artists kind of infect new technology and use it in ways that maybe wasn't originally intended, right? But I love this conversation because I think it's very 21st century, and I think it's maybe even late to the 21st century. And we're talking about hypermodernity, connecting people from all over the world. But it's interesting to me that both of us were like from the same part of the world, right? And so the colors, actually, I've done some laser cut pieces. I've done neon colors. I grew up in the United States. I've always been cognizant of my Mexican culture because it was just a few yards away. I could see it, but I was born in a different place with a different citizenship. My family's been in North America before it was Mexico, and those cultures have always kind of shifted. So like you said, you kind of connected this to, especially going to Guadalajara, like, traditional colors. So I thought I started using those colors because of like 1980s video game colors, but maybe there's more to that than I kind of realized. But also, like you use the word hybrid, I call what I do mutant practices, and I use the word mutant because it's kind of more messy, it's kind of more punk. I kind of feel like hybrid is a concept that people want where things kind of fit together neatly. And for me, I kind of feel like most human beings, that is our superpower. We have so many emotions, so many thoughts when we wake up in the morning, and it's always changing. And I always wonder why culturally it's supposed to be forced into one way of feeling, one kind of thing. And it's interesting to me, like this, I love this conversation because I like what you're calling like a novel, right? But traditionally novels is something that you would read, but this is a different form of reading, right? Once we started having, computers, hypertext, we're starting to read and look at different icons all at the same time. And I think probably throughout time, we've always had those kind of elements, but I like you're calling it a novel, but it's a different kind of format, right? You're interested in storytelling. I kind of am like this idea of having multiple ideas. Maybe there was a narrative somewhere down below, because a lot of my work kind of comes from my family history, but my family history is oral. It was never really written, or there wasn't really like photo albums. So it's just like stories, right? They're kind of elusive, and I get together with family, and one person has a different story than the other person of that same time, that same kind of memory. So that's something that Eugene and I would kind of tap into. And I guess for me growing up, I was kind of more of the postmodern age, where that was the destruction of the narrative, right? Things are too crazy. There's not kind of a narrative. I don't completely believe that, but like you said, accessibility. That's why I wanted something like this where people can step on the artwork, be inside of the artwork, not have to be distanced from a work of art. So I've worked in museums, and also work in the education field. And for a while, there's this idea of Gardner's multiple intelligence theory of multiple intelligences. That some people are visual learners. That's how they process information. Some people are oral. They listen to sound or music. That's how they get information. Some people are kinesthetic, but that tendency can change depending on the situation. So yeah, for me, this idea of experiencing, being a part of a show like this is this idea that there's multiple ways of experiencing something. And so I like that accessibility, that it doesn't always have to be kind of one way, but it's kind of cool. Like you're kind of about the, I don't know the narrative, but like storytelling. Mine is also storytelling too, but it's not as linear. And I also I come from an abstract painting background. So maybe that kind of shows in this piece. And the other thing also too, like when technology started happening, when everyone had like a smartphone, everyone could be an artist, everyone could be a photographer, post your images online, everyone could be a filmmaker. I was kind of wondering, because you can do that, and because of the camera, I was wondering if that kind of mentality with creativity started becoming too much about reality. Like I can record the real world. And so the thing I like about abstraction is maybe that's a way also, like you were talking about love, to kind of represent emotions and things like that. The things that are kind of hard to, I don't know, maybe directly represent those kind of intangibles. But so thanks for indulging me. I just kind of, I don't know, I'm enjoying this conversation. It's kind of cool to have, you know, these connectivities and these differences. And is there anything else?
Voice another question. Yes. I would love to kind of like wrap up. There is one question that it's about like just the general relationship between art and technology and how technology is rapidly changing. We all experience this, like Jason and I are like videographers, and like just 10 years ago, the technology was like completely one way. How you see those works like in the near or like far future, and how they are depending on technology. I do see your artistic role as more like also like almost like ambassadors for all these like new softwares and everything. But at the same time, we don't have that privilege of being, you know, having everything on the plate from that software saying like, hey, let me give you the newest update of whatever is available right now. How you feel in that way, like economical way, like relationship between the software's development and the artwork, and how you see your work in the near future, does not have to be far.
So my short answer is as technology artists or art technologists, really it's on us to make art that helps us focus in on what it means to be human. It's plain and simple. It's not really about geeking out, I don't think. We have to geek out to work in this medium because there's a certain amount of rigor, precision, and depth that's required to actually produce anything. But it's on the other end of it, it's actually a huge opportunity to figure out what is unique about us as a species. And I know that's what I was thinking about when I'm working on this.
Perhaps I can interject at this point what the relationship to the actual physical body is. I mean, we're actually human beings here with the brain and with metabolism and with circulation and with all of other stuff. So I think, you know, I'd like to put my 2 cents in here since I was invited to come into the space. There was some sort of reason why you wanted that. And that was for the physical body to be interacting with the imagery, right? Is that why there was that invitation?
Yeah, I mean, well, the idea that there's still like a physical component to the digital technology that we have now, right? So lots of times, you know, a lot of younger artists are into like game design. Their experience with art, they go to Instagram, and so it's this kind of flat place. There's no texture. That element is kind of missing, right? And so so for us, I think we're very interested in continuing to have those elements in terms of, instead of people always thinking like technology, oh, the robots are going to take over, or we're going to lose this other component. But I felt this was an opportunity to have both.
Working with the imagery, right? It was actually a stream of perception. That's what it was. It was so the brain is working way faster than actually the imagery. Okay, so that was the experience. My experience with it was that there was you know, these sort of instantaneous reactions that had to do with I don't even know what. I mean, history, opinion, narrative, whatever it was. So, you know, so it was changing attitude. instantaneously, was grabbing this, it was stomping on babies, it was, I mean, it just hit boom, 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 boom. Right?
I loved your interpretation,
So,
your movement interpretation.
Yeah,
right, and it had to, and it sort of what, so I was bringing in the entire, probably like the cinematic picture of my own history and my own thought process and experiences too, and emotions. So that's what was happening.
Well, strategically, the
And then it was
images,
kicking into physically into the nervous system, the neuromuscular system, and also trying also to bring in quiet, stillness, because that's what I think we were trying, you know, that we had some element in here of stillness, this image of maybe the earth or the weather on top of this, I don't know what it really is, it's kind of like a cloud or whatever, like that, and then, yeah, I mean, the stillness is so important, that still point and that groundedness, so there was a tension between
Yeah.
God
and that's wonderful because the piece actually organizes images around imagination, memory, and culture.
Yeah.
And so, you know, to see you doing a performance, a
Right.
movement performance, we all get to see how you're accessing your own imagination,
Right.
memory, and
Right.
culture.
Right.
And that is the connection.
And that,
between
right,
us.
and that, because,
And
right,
we're hoping
because you
every-
cannot substitute
Yeah.
this and the brain for anything.
And we're hoping everybody like sits around in that stillness that you're talking about long enough to actually make a different kind of contact with their own imagination, memory, and culture.
Exactly.
Not necessarily like, let's hear. It's a catalyst. It's a
It's,
facilitator.
right, and what I found, I mean, but what was different about the experience is because I was driven by the imagery. In other words, I let myself be not absolutely 100%, but 93, 95%, I was driven by all the imagery, right? So, and that may be different in other situations that are improvisational or choreographed out of improvisation. So that was very unique to this experience.
Well, thank you so much for bringing that up, because I definitely wanted to ask you what your interpretation of this piece was, and I want to thank you for gracing us with your movement performance.
That was fun. I really appreciate
So-
it. I appreciated what you did.
But it's also great to your in-depth kind of perspective, because I think you spent the most time with the movement of the piece than anyone else, and kind of like also bringing your dance background, your performance art background.
Did you draw the money? There's Roosevelt in there, and there's Jefferson in there, and did you? But they look like caricatures. Did you draw it?
The money is imagery that graphics are produced by the U.S. Mint.
Oh, really?
It's official graphic
Because
representation of money.
it looked distorted a little bit. I mean, it was, you know, I've never seen Washington's face exactly like that, or I mean, I figured it was Jefferson. I definitely was Roosevelt. And that was, you know, I mean, I saw Roosevelt and it was like, oh yes. Bring
That
it
scene
back.
that you're talking about, we call the scene dimes and nickels after a reference of nickel and dimes and stuff like that.
Right.
And you know, they have this whole campaign to kind of change the depictions on money. You know, they're trying to move away from like all men, all white, like that whole thing.
Yeah.
And this was like part of. I mean, there's still men, but you know, they're working on changing things, and they're trying different things. So it was sort of a piece that you know, hopefully, you know, opens up some conversation.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Mexico is the only country in the world that actually has an artist on its currency. They have one of Diego Rivera.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, but in terms of like my intent, I guess part of my artistic background, I'm interested in this German concept, Gesamtkunstwerk, which is basically like an opera, right? An opera that there's everything. There's like it's painterly because there's these painted sets, there's sound, there's singing, there's all these things combined into one place. And like you said, you wanted to do, like if you want to do a monumental like earthwork or whatever, you don't have the money to do it, you can build it, it exists. So this is kind of like a form of kind of that kind of operatic thing. And then I also kind of feel like I kind of talked about my family history being ephemeral, not really photographed. So I kind of feel like a lot of my installations are films, or they're movie sets, movies in my mind that will never be filmed, but people can kind of experience, right?
Well, and what's interesting also is that to a certain extent, anything created that's digital is going to be ephemeral, because it can only be played in certain kinds of hardware and software. And once that hardware and software is obsolete and gone, the piece is gone. I mean, there's a lot of work from the 80s that was interactive, multimedia, digital art by performance artists, by other people that no one can play anymore. They were on floppy disks. They required certain kinds of data stack software that no longer runs. They require certain kinds of hardware that no longer runs. They're gone. And so everything you guys are doing, with the exception of what you've cut out of wood, is going to be ephemeral. And it kind of also brings up that we're all ephemeral.
Well,
And that in however many billions of years, the Earth and the Sun are going to collide, and the universe is going to be ephemeral too. So it really is sort of this pulsating, huge, tiny sort of self-conception that keeps coming up for me looking at this. The other thing I just wanted to say is I really do see all the RGB, CMYK, crazy ass digital freak out colors coming out from a lot of this work. But when your piece with the piñatas that have LED lights, I so see, after seeing your piece, looking at that, like, are we looking at the extrapolation and articulation of a great big weird piñata with, I don't know, but again, what is a piñata? It's something that people bash, the candy comes out and it's gone. You can put hours and hours into making them some fabulous piñata, and it's ultimately ephemeral.
One of the last thing to answer the question too. I feel like technology is just a tool, you know, and eventually, the same way as we see restoring pieces from the 1800s, 1700s, there's one person probably in the whole world that is dedicated to restore these pieces from the past. There's gonna be a moment in time where there's gonna be these guys that restore technology, restore codes, and they're very specific for. So as the technology changes, there's gonna be people that are going to be there to give back all those things that we left behind, and the way that we cannot no longer make it work, or there's gonna be these guys. I feel like restoration in the future is gonna be the same way as restoration right now from the past.
I like that.
Great. So we are going to wrap up the conversation just because it's been really great. Thank you for your questions. We're still going to be here for 20 more minutes. I think these guys want you to interact with their artists. We also have two other artists who are here today as well, Joe Carrillo and Gregory Fry. So if you have questions about any of the artwork, we as curators are also here to answer them. So let's go enjoy some things.